Hey, everybody. Patrick Varano here, again, host of the podcast Learning from Leaders, as well as CEO of Emory Leadership Group. And I've been doing a lot of work recently on a chapter of Cables around belonging. And there was a quote that I came across yesterday, listening to a podcast that really just, it struck me in a way that I certainly enjoy quotes. This one, it still resonates with me today in regards to engagement, employee engagement, and also disruptive behaviors within organization. I wanted to talk about that. The quote is actually an African proverb, and it says that a child that is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. And to me, as I listen to that again, right, will burn it down to feel its warmth. A child that's not embraced. And it doesn't have to be a child, right? I look in terms of thinking this could be an organization. And I'll tie in some work that's been done by Gallup in regards to employee engagement surveys. And a lot of that data has been consistent over 2 decades that would suggest that two-thirds of employees within an organization are not engaged, and that roughly 20% of that group is actively disengaged. And when I think of that quote again, that African proverb of not being embraced by the village, to me, this is about belongingness, which is created through, I believe, psychological safety. Not that long ago, I was asked to present at a state human resource conference. And the topic as I was asked to speak on was dealing with the disruptive behaviors of an employee. So dealing with the difficult employee. And when I got up there to give the presentation, I think many thought I was going to talk about here's why the difficult employee or the problem employee is their own fault. And to the group, I said, really, anybody that's out here that's dealing with a difficult employee or a problem employee, you're to blame. And I think that threw people at first. But I truly believe that, because if you think about it, there's not probably been a chance where we've hired somebody and we thought, boy, I can't wait till you don't work out, right? I can't wait till the day that I have to put you on a performance plan. We come with the best of intentions when we hire somebody about the potential that's there. And that somewhere along the way, there is a misalignment between probably the values, our behaviors, what we said was going to be available for the employee and what they have experienced. They're not the same, and that creates this disengagement. So it is the person that is dealing with that individual, that problem employee, that I believe really does have a lot of the responsibility, because it probably has come down to, one, a misalignment, but two, a misalignment of what may not have been clear expectations of what the employee was meant to do. But I'll go back to, again, that belief, right? A child that is not embraced by the village. This happens all the time within organizations. We talk about in-groups and out-groups, and an employee that is sort of felt to be on the outside, that's ostracized, is somebody that's not going to be engaged, right? But the person that feels as though they're embraced by the village, they're embraced by the team, you're probably not going to see them as disengaged. And to me, leaders, managers have the responsibility of creating that sense of belongingness. We can go back thousands of years if we think about this in terms of pack or herd animals. We're very much like that. We need each other to survive. Thousands of years ago, if you were voted outside of the tribe, that was a death sentence. You couldn't make it on your own. I believe it's the same thing today, and we certainly hear stories of organizations where people have acted violently, and this is no excuse for that, but oftentimes the stories will come back to people feeling ostracized, not part of the group, made fun of, excluded from different things. There's so much power that we can gain by when there's a sense of belonging. Some of the work that's been done, again, by the Gallup organization, we talk about certainly the numbers, right? 2/3 of employees are disengaged. Well, that's based on what they call a Q12. So simply 12 questions that employees are asked, or participants are asked, to gauge their own experience in their companies. 4 of those, I would say, directly deal with belongingness, in my opinion. We talk about asking employees if they feel like they've got a supervisor or somebody else that cares about them as a person at work, not them as an employee, cares about them as a person at work, right? One of the other questions is, um, have I been recognized for doing good work in the last 7 days? Right. So am I recognized for my contributions here? The next is, do my opinions matter here? Right. Because if my opinions don't matter, if I feel like my opinions don't matter, do I feel like I'm on the inside or the outside? I'm on the outside. And then lastly, and I think one can be most confusing for people is, do you have a best friend at work? And I will admit, when I first read that, I thought, well, do you have a best friend at work? No, I don't have a best friend, but I would actually look at it differently in a work setting. It's not asking, does your best friend come to work with you? I would think of it more like, do you have somebody that you work with that you feel close to, that you can confide in? And again, I go back to belongingness on this. If we don't have that, bad things tend to happen, right? We have disengagement within an organization. 2 things happen. I believe people either disengage in ways that they fly under the radar, they sort of go below the surface, they try and avoid contact with other people. But I think the other side of this is you have disengagement in a way where people behave in disruptive ways toward other people. And this, to me, is maybe part of that burning down the village to feel its warmth, right? If you're not going to treat me the right way, I'm going to behave in ways that show my level of dissatisfaction being here, right? I'm going to act this thing out. I think it's very important. So how do we get to belongingness, right? Which we know has so much research behind it. One that I read that I've used in some of the research, some of the writings that I've done, speaks about belongingness the same way as it speaks about physical nutrition for us. That without that, we do begin to deteriorate. We die without that sense of belongingness. Now, to create that, in my own experience, what I have found in organizations is there needs to be a great deal of psychological safety. And when you first talk or hear about that word psychological safety, I will tell you, I first thought, geez, this sounds kind of fluffy, right? It doesn't seem like it, people are going to think, oh, this is about snowflakes. It's not. It's the opposite. When we have psychological safety, and I don't care whether you are in a motorcycle gang or an airline pilot or a surgeon or you're in school or at home, we all need psychological safety. That ability to, I think, be authentic, be who we are, to be able to speak the way we'd like to speak. If we look at some of the work that's been done by Pat Lencioni in this area, the 5 dysfunctions of a team, the first dysfunction within an organization is lack of trust, right? Not having trust. And we think about not having trust, it's very much about psychological safety. If I can't say what I want to say, either because I'm afraid I'll be retaliated against if I say it, right? I saw what happened to Jim or Sue when they spoke up, and they're no longer here anymore. So I know that's not the right thing to do here. But also, maybe it's I'm ridiculed. Maybe I've been in a group and I've seen maybe somebody else give their opinion or think outside of the box, so to speak, and I've watched people roll their eyes at them. So what does that tell me? It says, unless you want to be that person, keep your ideas to yourself. Let's just play it safe here. Lastly, I think one that we may not appreciate as much, but I think can be the most damaging is when we're ignored, right? So in that Q12, it was talked about. One of the survey questions is, do my opinions count here? Well, if you ask me for my opinion, but then nothing is done, I'm not acknowledged for those, I've given my contributions, but it hasn't gone anywhere. How valued do you think I am? Or do I feel that I am? Not very, right? Because nobody really listens to me. So I don't trust that this organization or this team or this person that I report to is really an advocate of me, or is looking out for my best interest. When we don't have those, again, we lack psychological safety. A couple examples that I've used in the past. One, and there are a number of these in regards to pilots and co-pilots. There was a show that I was watching not that long ago, and it was about airline disasters. And what they were doing is reenacting, and you're listening to the voice recorder from the cockpit. And from the very beginning of this flight, you have a pilot that continues to berate the co-pilot, telling them that they're stupid, asking them if they needed to repeat what they just said. Are they going to be able to handle that? And what you notice throughout this flight is there's less and less dialogue of the co-pilot responding. And what's interesting about this is when the investigators looked back on what part of the cause of that crash was that the co-pilot had the responsibility to recognize, some of the data that was going on the plane, and failed to tell the pilot soon enough about a challenge that was coming up, something that was going to be detrimental to the plane. And they believed that part of that was that the co-pilot just didn't feel as though they could mention this. They were probably hoping that the pilot would notice it themselves, and they didn't want to bring up what was something obvious that the pilot was then going to berate them and say, "Don't you think I know that?" Right? And this plane actually crashed. 130 something people perished. Another example of this is in motorcycle gangs. Now, you'd think it's the last place we probably need psychological safety is in a motorcycle gang. But there was an example down in Florida of somebody, a very high-ranking person within a motorcycle gang, had actually flipped, had gone to the authorities to basically speak about what was going on in this motorcycle gang. And when this individual was asked, "Why did you turn on this motorcycle gang?" And the individual said it was because we were seeing less and less tolerance within this gang. That when people spoke up or voiced differing opinions on maybe some of the activities of the gang, what they were doing, those people were either severely beaten or in some cases they were killed. So if that's the case, what it taught people was you can't speak out here, right? You risk your life to challenge what's going on here. It happens in healthcare as well. I was working with another group that it was around a surgeon. And when I read the quote yesterday, or heard the quote yesterday about the child that's not embraced by the village, burning it down to feel its warmth, again, I thought of the story of this surgeon who really had alienated himself from the entire team and had people that were actually leaving the team, nurses that didn't want to work for this individual. And in speaking to this person's boss, the person said that this person had dealt with a number of life issues, that this person really had been very isolated themselves, and had said to this supervisor, like, "I feel like everybody's against me here," right? "I feel like everybody's against me here." And my guess is if we were to talk to each of those people that left, they would have said the opposite. They feel like he was against them, right? So his poor behavior was this sense of acting out, right? Burning down the village. We can see again where not having this sense of belonging becomes so important. And that's why in the model that I use quite often around cables, it's the B cable in that model is belongingness, because it is so important as leaders, as managers, as coworkers to create a sense of belonging for others. And when it's not there, bad things happen. I'll end this with a quote from Maya Angelou. This is part of one of the quotes that I use in this chapter on belonging. And she says, "I long, as does every human being, to be at home wherever I am," right? Longing wherever I am to be at home. And I think that's so true again. We all long for that sense of belonging, that whether I'm at work or at home or in the community or on a team, wherever that is, as human beings, that we all long for that comfort of feeling as though we're at home. And to me, that is about being um, in a place where we feel like we belong. So important. If we truly want to increase engagement, to reduce bad behaviors within organizations, we all have a responsibility to create this sense of belonging. And that starts with providing an environment where people feel psychologically safe. I hope you have found this beneficial. I challenge you to look at your own organizations, your own behaviors, and really ask yourself, do I, through my behaviors, create an environment that is psychologically safe, that provides a sense of belonging? Do people on my team, in my group, feel as though they are at home where they are right now? I hope you've enjoyed this. And until the next episode, I hope you're all able to go out there and rise above your best. Take care.